Welcome to episode 4 of the Activism series, where I meet several activists from around the world who are fighting for change within their communities through direct action or social media. So far, we have explored the aim of activism, the Black Lives Matter movement, and climate change. In this episode, we will look at the activism around women's issues. I will speak to a gender-based violence campaigner and activist destigmatizing women's mental health through art. Violence against women has long remained a global issue. 1/3 of women worldwide have experienced physical or sexual violence by an intimate partner, and 18% have experienced such violence in the past year. With the world in lockdown due to the COVID-19 pandemic, many women and girls have felt isolated more than ever. One story which circulated the news was the story of Sarah Everard. In the beginning of March this year, Sarah Everard went missing after leaving her friend's house in Clapham, London at 9 p.m. What unfolded after this, no one had predicted. A couple days later, her remains were found in Kent, and a police officer named Mr. Waynes Couzens was charged with the kidnapping and murder of Miss Everard. This story not only shook the media, but many women around the world, sharing their solidarity and stories on social media. Here are some of the TikToks created after Sarah Everard's death. Women sharing their experiences of harassment as well as messages of solidarity. I spoke to Emma Mosley, a gender-based violence campaigner based in London, about the impact of Sarah Everard's death.
So many women are talking about how her murder made them feel and kind of coming, like you said, coming forward with their own stories. I think for women like myself, people like myself who work in the gender-based violence space, we obviously hear stories like hers all the time, although there are elements of her story that are quite unique. And it's kind of, you get so many of these stories, having a story like hers kind of catch the public's attention. Like, there's obviously reasons why it did catch the public's attention, but I think it's a really powerful and hopefully positive moment that people are kind of thinking about this issue and talking about this issue in a way that hasn't been done for years. And I'm very hopeful that will have a positive impact.
Immediately after Sarah's death, the UK government introduced new safety measures for women and girls within England. One of these measures included an additional £25 million for lighting and CCTV, and an initial scheme which would allow police to be in plain clothes in clubs and pubs.
I haven't met a single person who thinks that will be any impact of that. I mean, maybe increased lighting and CCTV will make some people feel safer, but it won't have an impact on actual women's safety. And the proposal around plainclothes officers, there's not a single person in the gender-based violence sector or a single woman who thinks that that's a good idea and will have a positive impact in any way. So yeah, I think it's very frustrating that they have put their heads together and this is what they've come up with, when if they just listen to women and listen to the gender-based violence sector, they come up with 100 proposals that would have a better impact than that.
The Council of Europe Istanbul Convention is a human rights treaty which prevents and combats violence against women. Some of the laws include: the state must prevent all forms of violence against women, protect those who experience violence, and the police and justice system professionals should be trained on victim rights. Emma talked about her campaign towards making laws within the treaty relevant to the UK.
Strongest and best laws that we have around gender-based violence. So if a country puts those into place, then it's kind of the best international footing, the kind of gold standard on what you can do to tackle gender-based violence.
Okay.
So the UK has signed up to it, so that's us kind of saying this is a good idea, but we haven't ratified it, which it means that we haven't taken the laws from the Istanbul Convention and put them into the UK. So yeah, I'm part of their campaign to get the UK to ratify it, called I See Change, because we consider that would be a really great thing that the UK could do to take a step forward on gender-based violence.
Women are faced with many internal struggles like mental health. Around 1 in 5 women have a common mental health problem such as anxiety, depression, or self-harm. However, women of colour often have found themselves battling with their mental health during the pandemic. I spoke to mental health activist and artist Shravya Atuluri, who is based in Hong Kong, about how her artwork is influenced by her experience of mental health as a South Asian woman.
The reason a lot of my art, a majority of my art, unless I'm commissioned, the girls have curly hair, and they're curvy and they're brown, because I never saw that representation in art. And that's kind of also what made me lean onto art, because when I went into depression, I needed to know that other people went through this and I wasn't alone. And this was 6 years ago. There wasn't that much discussion about it. There was definitely a stigma, and nobody really wanted to talk about it.
Sravya is also the creative director of Our Streets Now, a campaign group demanding to end public sexual harassment in the UK.
Yeah, I think I started getting involved a little over a year ago, and back then, I was just interested in using my art to kind of raise awareness about women's rights, and wanted to join them and help them spread their message further through art. And that's kind of how we developed, and now I've helped them grow a whole creative team, because I think with Our Streets Now, they want to focus on the legal aspect as well, as the cultural aspect, because it doesn't just come with legal change. There's a lot of cultural change that has to be brought about, and I think that's where art can help. Feel like art can help victims or survivors, it's a better word, survivors, feel seen, and help them cope. It can be a coping mechanism. So it's really at the core of, the cultural goal.
Sravya opened up about the stigmatization of mental health within the South Asian community, but also how she overcame the feelings of negativity.
Being Indian or just South Asian in general, people like to put up a front that, we're strong and nothing's happened and this is the best of my life, which is kind of what we do on social media as well. Just putting up the best highlights of our life. And, when you break that mold and you see somebody you look up to who you think has, the perfect life, come out and say, hey, what you're feeling, I felt too. And guess what? Okay. And, I'm real. I think that really makes a difference between life and death for people. So more people need to do that.
Recently, the government passed the Domestic Abuse Bill after 4 years of deliberation from members of Parliament. This bill will recognise the threat of sharing intimate images and non-fatal strangulations as crimes. Economic abuse, coercion and control are also recognised. This is the UK government's attempt in making women feel safer, but there are still 1.6 million women in the UK who experience domestic abuse and are left feeling unsafe.